everybody, welcome back to the Chaotic Little Book Corner. My name's Acacia. Today is my Hillary Clinton shirts on, and I have a tripod. My mama got me, well, she gave me her old tripod. That's what happened. So now we have a tripod. We have a tripod. We can have a better shot at angle. That's not so weird. It's awesome. And you guys can see that my plus size faces, plus size with the plus size, and all of it is plus size, which I'm sure you guys knew, but it's totally fine. I'm just looking and I'm like, oh my gosh, my body's big. I have my coffee, which weirdly enough is a pumpkin spice creamer. I didn't like pumpkin spice last year. This year I'm kind of okay with it. I think I'm liking the spice part. Yeah. Okay, so I have made one video that I posted yesterday, which, surprise, was on a Sunday, and then this video is coming up, surprise, on a Monday. I wanted to give myself 2 extra days of review week just because I felt like I had more to say and I wanted to kind of spread it all out. Sure, let us dive in. If you guys have any questions as to why I am supporting Hillary, please refrain from placing them in the comments. Please refrain from nasty comments in the comments about my political agenda. If you have anything nasty to say to me, you can definitely email me. I know you guys have no problem emailing me nasty things, so yeah. That is not geared towards most of my subscribers. There just are a few of you who tend to watch my videos and then send me a nasty comment on my email. And you're still watching all my videos. I'm confused, but we are moving on. Today we're going to be doing a triple review. Now this triple review, it's gonna, to a lot of you guys, it's gonna be like, what is she talking about? Why do these all mix together? But I will explain my logic. Each Vagabond My Name by Margot Orlando Little. This is from Uno Press, which is University of New Orleans. I am super in love with this book. I will be talking about that. And then I will be talking about how does that make you feel? This is Tales from Both Sides of the Couch. This is from Seal Press. And then this one is Matthew Green Aftershock, and this is talking about PTSD, and it is from Portobello, and I'm going to talk about all 3, and we're going to go in order of events, meaning we're going to go from this book to Aftershock to how does that make you feel. We're going to follow what happens in a brain. Stay with me, I promise there's logic. Okay, each Vagabond My Name is a story of 2 characters as well as a group of young children who are robbing the local area. Now, the people who are robbing are actually from away, and they're a traveling group of people with a bunch of others. And they are now breaking into homes in this small town in Pennsylvania, and they are taking items, and they are, you know, kind of asking for money and trying to find a place and trying to find a home in this community to a point, but there is this feeling of hatred towards them. One, because they're robbing them, but secondly, and actually nope, not more valued, that's not right, the stronger reason, the reason that's actually the big picture reason, is that they're different. They're different and they're from outside the community, and therefore they are strange and they should not be there. So, Stella and Ramsey are the 2 characters that actually really want to understand these people that are from away and from outside the community that are trying to come in and trying to work with the community, trying to live near the community and trying to gain peace, even though they're causing a little bit of trouble and havoc. They're just trying to live the way that they know how. This story for me was a really, really important one. It really changed the dynamic of how I usually view small town communities, because when I usually view small town communities in a lot of books, they seem to glorify it and they don't understand that there is a really, really terrible subculture to a lot of small communities, one of which being my own, unfortunately. So the way that I have grown up, I am technically an outsider. I was born and raised in this community. However, my parents are not from here, which makes me an outsider. And so this book felt a lot more accurate to me because there is this feeling of dread and fear of the unknown and the outsider that this community all shares and tries so hard to instill in their own. But then there's Stella and Ramsey who want so badly to understand and accept and love, but it's so discriminated against by the community that they end up being ostracized as well due to that. Now, this for me really talked about people with past traumas. It talked about people with current issues that are, struggling for money and life and wealth, not wealth, and well-being, and for common decency to be treated like a normal human. It was really, really profound, really, really powerful, and extremely honest in terms of how a community can really ostracize somebody for being different. I personally think this is extremely important and wonderful, and the reason that I include this in this group is this is the kind of treatment that happens to people in their life that can cause mental health to tank or cause people to have mental issues that actually affect the rest of their lives. Myself included, I really, really do understand that my situation could have happened anywhere, but it didn't. And also the community in and of itself decided that I was no good. And so because of that, they decided to make it worse and worse and worse. So my story feels very close to this in certain aspects, not entirely 110%, but it's a really, really good interpretation of small town mentality and mob mentality and chaos and complete and total lack of open-mindedness. Now we move into Aftershock. Aftershock by Matthew Green talks about PTSD in the Irish and UK soldiers who fought in the Iraqi war. Now, for me, reading this book was hard, and I'm going to admit that right now. This took me 3 months to get through, 2 or 3 months. Usually I can read a book like this, which is 300 pages, in less than 3 days, maybe 4 if I'm really struggling, but this one, it hit me, and it hit me hard. PTSD is something that, one, is very close to me because I do suffer from it, and two, PTSD is something that is very misunderstood and very hard to explain to somebody without PTSD. And the reason I say that is because PTSD is not a cut and dry response. You don't just have PTSD and you have the same symptoms across the board. There are hallucinations, there are night terrors, there are random acts of manic where you are up and then you're down and you're in fear and you're in panic. It's terrifying, it's scary, and the thing that some people don't think about, PTSD, when you are responding to a situation that is triggering you to your past trauma, it feels like you're in that trauma again. That is a really crucial aspect of PTSD. When the gentlemen in this nonfiction speak, one of the things that I really, really think that we need to hone home about war vets and rape victims or survivors, whichever they prefer to identify as, when you cause trigger and trauma to those people, the internal response that they have to that moment may seem over dramatized, just over the top, and like something that's completely unnecessary. But to them, they are in fight or flight mode. They are in the situation at their core. In that moment, they think that their life is in danger. And for us to try and trivialize this and to turn this into, well, if you just take a medication, or why don't you just calm down, or you're being really sensitive, those terminologies are so detrimental to the people with PTSD in the community, because what they do is they undermine, they take away the ability to grieve for their own loss of safety, and it takes away the ability for them to be able to try and face their own issues and mentality. Because as soon as you decide that a person with PTSD is hypersensitive or overdramatic, you've now taken that person and put them into a category where they immediately feel as if they're not being heard. They immediately are going to shut down with you. You can't help them. You can't feel any sense of connection to them. I myself am sad to admit I have several people in my life that I am very, very much close to, but because of my mental illness, they either don't understand and don't know how to speak to me anymore, or they really want to help, but the way that they want to help is to tell me how to live. And that's not helpful. I need to figure it out. I need to learn what works for me. And every person with mental illness and PTSD needs to do this. PTSD is not a mental illness that you're born with. It is based upon trauma. It is based upon a life event that is so detrimentally damaging to the human psyche and body that it has changed them forever. PTSD does not just affect your mind. It doesn't just make you scared. It makes you physically it makes you respond physically differently. It makes your life so much more different and more difficult than most people's in terms of responses to normal everyday occurrences, such as for a lot of gentlemen in the military, fireworks can be a trigger. Fireworks can be a trigger because they emulate the sound of gunfire, and gunfire being a trigger for them because their trauma could be as simple as just being in the act of war. It could also be that they saw something so horrific that their body was unable to comprehend, and so it started responding in a totally different way. The synapses within the body is what changes. The body chemistry, the mind, the brain chemistry, it all changes with PTSD, and it responds in such a dramatic way. Nope, such an intense way. I don't want to use the word dramatic because dramatic to so many people implies drama and over exaggerating and such, but it's not over exaggerating. It's really, really different. For anyone who has more questions, please let me know. I do have a book that talks about, it's a graphic novel, and it talks about the body after trauma and what happens, and I can share some stories with you guys about my own body and how it's changed with trauma. Now, I will explain one thing to you. It is really, really, really personal how my body has changed with trauma, and I will admit that right now. I'm not just talking about how my brain reacts and how I function day to day. I'm talking about my bodily function has changed, and that is a terrifying thought. If you want more information on it, let me know in the comments below. I am happy to share it with you, but it may take a while to get up, and also I will probably disable comments on that situation. The last but not least is, how does that make you feel? True confessions from both sides of the therapy couch. Now, you guys see my logic? The trauma of being ostracized, the trauma being a mental response to trauma, and now we're on the therapy couch. See how I did that? See how I did that? Okay, so this book for me was a really, really good adaptation of a lot of adaptation is the wrong word. Acacia, verbs. Nope, not even the right word there. Okay. So this talks a lot about, this is a bunch of different essays talking from the perspective of the therapist and the patient. It was, I'm going to take a sip of coffee because I'm talking too fast. Okay. This talks about both sides of the couch. Now, obviously, that's what it does, Acacia. Good job. I 95% loved this, and 5% meh. The 5% was only 2 stories in here that I didn't like, 2 essays I didn't like the writing of, and also one of them was talking about speed couching or speed therapy, shrinking around is what they call it. And I've had, if we count the, I don't want to count her. if we count my high school counselor, who was one of the main reasons for my trauma, I have had 8, maybe 9, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. I have had 9 therapists in my 27 years of life, and that started when I was about 6. So in 21 years I've had 9 therapists. I don't know if that's normal. I've had 2 that I really, really connected with. I've had 4 that I slightly connected with, but then something would happen or something about my past would have come up and they would try and treat it in a way that was detrimental to a person with DID. So my response was to stop functioning with them. So for me, I designed Acacia M, and Acacia M is a part of me. She is one of my alters who is specifically geared to go to therapy when I no longer trust the therapist. So she's the one who's really, really experienced therapy the most. Because usually what would happen in my past, before I was diagnosed with DID, is I would go to therapy. They would ask all the wrong questions. They really would kind of focus on what a normal person would, or a neurotypical person would be having trouble with. They were treating me as depression. And then when I finally came out about my sexual assault at the age of 18, I came out about my rape, and I was sent to a trauma therapist, and she was very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Holistic. It didn't work for me. And then one day I was late and she got mad at me. So that was it with her. Acacia M went from there on out. And then I had another therapist who did tat work. Now, tat work is rapid eye movement, and it's meant to help soften the memory and make it livable, basically. But doing it with a person with DID is actually taking down the amnesic barrier prior to them actually being ready to take down the amnesic barrier. So it causes them to relive the trauma, which reignites the trauma and it intensifies it. And so once she did that one day, I never went back to her again as myself. I was always Acacia M after that. And so this book really... It wasn't until I found my therapist that I'm with now that I fully have felt, and luckily he'll call me on my crap when Acacia M is out. He makes her go back in because he doesn't want to. He works with all my parts. He talks to all of them. They all come out in therapy as much as they can, but Acacia M's main point is to tell the therapist that I'm fine and that everything's fine and we don't need them anymore and we're fine and there's nothing that we can talk about. We're fine. And that happened constantly, all the time with my therapists, is they'd be like, well, she says she's fine. And my parents would be like, what are you talking about? Oh, it was bad. But anyway, this book opens with a therapist discussing what it's like to treat a narcissist, and then it continues from there. I really, really thought that this was important. For any person who has ever been on the couch, you absolutely need to read this. For people who are considering going into therapy, it's a really good book, because the thing about this is it shows you that your therapist sitting across from you is actually a human. They have human emotions. They have feelings. I didn't really put 2 and 2 together until I read this book, that there are probably days where I'm sitting on the chair and talking to my therapist and I'm like, everything's going wrong, my life is terrible, and he probably has a sick kid at home and he's worried about the kid, but he has to be there with me because people like me need structure and have to see my therapist, and have to see them weekly to twice a week or what have you. It's a very strange relationship. It's a person who knows your innermost secrets, your innermost depth thoughts, and you know nothing about them, and you are trusting them to give you feedback, honest feedback. You want a therapist who challenges you. You don't want one who's just like, you're doing so well. You're just so brilliant all the time, because when you have that, things go weird. But anyway, this book is great if you're thinking about going into therapy, if you've been in therapy, if you're in therapy, any of the above. This is a really interesting book to kind of take a glimpse at that from an outside perspective and viewpoint in. I think it's brilliant. I really enjoyed it. You guys, this has been 20 minutes, so we're done. I'm going to wrap this up right now because I've rambled on long enough. I will see you tomorrow. I love you guys.